See me. Hi, hi, hi. Wow. This is really so exciting. I'm so thrilled to be on here with you. And I think this is going to be a very important conversation. I just want to thank everyone for being here this evening and thank the crew for making this a really wonderful experience. This Communications Week has been phenomenal and so unique in so many ways. My cohort and chair of journalism, Dr. Vera Hawkins, couldn't be here with us, but we're thinking about her. But our focus is going to be so incredible and so important. It's so important because what we want to do is we want to show why journalism matters more than ever as we face some of the greatest social justice issues of our time, from the sit-ins of the 60s to Black Lives Matter and injustice in the criminal justice system to George Floyd. There is a lot to talk about. And I am so thrilled to have this gentleman on with us. His name is Anthony Graves. I'm thrilled to have him with us because he is one of the most iconic social justice champions on the face of the earth. His story will leave you in utter disbelief, and I'm going to want him to talk about his story. He spent 18 and a half years in a Texas prison. 12 of those years were on death row with 2 stays of execution. It is an unbelievable story. And through all of that, Anthony Graves is still not a person who has malice in his heart because he's been out there telling the story. And he's going to help us to understand why journalism is so important. And Anthony, let's just dig right in and talk about your story, because this generation of young people who we're training now don't know the Anthony Graves story. So let's go back and let's talk about this story and how we can shape and help them to understand why social justice issues need to be on the front burner and why they need to be able to tell those stories accurately.
Yes, fine. Thank you so much, Sabina, for inviting me to be a part of this. I'm so excited. Every time I get to share my story, I'm excited because I know that, if I just touch one person, get one person to understand the importance of why they role, why they have to play a independent role in journalism to get facts told into the public. If you got well, let me just do this. I'll tell you what. Let me share my story with you before I dig into that because I can talk, okay? But my story happened back in 1992 where a horrible crime had taken place. An entire family was murdered. They were shot, stabbed, bludgeoned to death. Gasoline was poured all over their bodies and the house was burned down, obviously in an attempt to cover up the crime. So imagine the outrage in this small little town, right? I think the town had about 3,000 people, something like that. So that was outrage. As a matter of fact, the mayor came out in the papers the next day and said who had done that crime didn't even deserve a trial. They should be caught and hanged, right? So that's kind of the way they pursued with the case, because the next week they had the funeral of the family. And imagine the 6 caskets. 4 of them were children under the age of 10. There was a teenage daughter and there was a grandmother, right? And then there's 6 caskets in this gymnasium, right? And the whole the whole community is there, right? Also, the Texas Rangers were there. When this young man shows up and he has bandages on him, like he had been in a fire or something, so he immediately became a person of interest to the Texas Rangers. Right. So after the funeral was over, they approached him and asked if they could talk to him. He agreed, and they followed him home. When they followed him home, they picked him up and took him to the DPS office. Along the way, going to the DPS office, he thought he seen some men in a Jeep coming off the freeway onto the feeder. And he thought one of them young men in the Jeep was me. Right. So that's very important to remember. Because when he get to the DPS office, they begin to interrogate this young man. They interrogated for like over 14 hours. Still today, we don't know all that he was saying at the time. But at the end of it, they told him that they know that he did the crime, but they didn't want him. They wanted the other guy that they thought that did the crime with him. And if he just give up the other person, that they would let him go. So this young man said that because he thought he had seen me in a Jeep previous to being interrogated, he called my name, knowing that I hadn't done anything with him. As a matter of fact, he didn't even really know me like that. But it was a small town, Brenham. Everybody know each other. So he called my name, not thinking that they would come and arrest me. They would just find out that I had nothing to do with it. They would have already let him go and that was his way of getting out of this. But it didn't happen that way, right? Because once he called my name, my whole life changed. Within 4 hours, they knocked on my door, right? And make a long story short, I ended up going to the police station, not knowing why I was going to the police station, but I was cooperating with the officer that just arrested me and told me that other officers want to talk to me. And I get to the police station and nobody want to talk to me. And I'm asking police, can somebody tell me why I'm here? Because I'm just truly lost, right? I'm thinking maybe do I have a ticket out or something? I don't know. I don't remember getting no ticket, but whatever it is, it can be cleared up. So I want somebody to talk to me. Finally, some Texas Rangers and a magistrate walked into the booking room, asked me to stand up, and just started reading me my rights. You have right to remain silent, this and that. And I'm just standing there baffled because I don't know where this is going. I haven't done anything wrong, so I don't know where this is going, but it'll be cleared up. And after she got to finish reading me my rights, she told me I've been charged with capital murder. Capital murder? I mean, I never even shot a gun in my life. I don't know what cases is, and I mean capital murder. And this was my response to that. But the video that caught my response to it, they never turned over to us because the jury would have seen that I knew nothing about what they were talking about. So they hid that. That's called exculpatory evidence. They kept out so that the jury couldn't see my reaction, right? Because it was so dramatic that you just would have known this man don't know anything, right? And then they asked me if I wanted to talk to him. So when you're innocent, of course you want to talk to him, regardless of the fact that they tell you that what you say can and will be used against you in the court of law when they reach your rights. You don't hear that part because you're innocent. You just want to talk and tell the truth, and you go home. That's just how naive you are about your innocence. So I went in and talked with them, and they interrogated me for about 13, 14 hours, man. I was everything but the child of God, right? And I don't even know what case we're talking about at this point. And then they finally told me, hey, you might well come clean because Robert told us everything. Well, I don't know who Robert is. So I'm asking them to tell me who Robert is, right? I'm going to say, Robert who? Because I know several Roberts in my neighborhood, right? And he said, finally he realized that I didn't know who he was talking about. So he said, Robert Carter. And I said, Carter. I was trying to replay it in my mind because I don't know who this is. And it dawned on me. This is a young man that had married a cousin of mine, right? So he must have known me through my family tree. But he don't know me like that. But that could be the only way he called my name. So I said to the officer, I said, Robert Carter, the guy that married to my cousin. And I kind of smiled, and it was like I was relieved because he don't know me. So I know this is a big mistake, right? And so the officer get in my face and say, you think this is funny? And I'm like, no, sir, but this man don't know me. You sure he called my name? Because I'm just confused now. And they was like, yeah, they call your name and it's that. But now they want me to tell them what he did. They don't want me, they want him. But I'm not lying on nobody. So I'm telling this officer, I don't even know this man. I'm not going to tell you this man did something I don't know him. Right? And so, well, he's putting it all on you. And if you don't tell us what he did, we're just going to go, put it on you. And if you are innocent, then don't let that no grass grow in your grave because he's going to put that needle in my arm, right? They're going to kill me because I won't say that I did something or this man did something because I don't know. So I ended up going to jail. I spent 2.5 years in jail. And the whole time I was in jail, I would watch the news. And on the news, they would have my face up there. They would have a picture of me. And I was the alleged suspect in this murder, right? Now, this is the role of the journalist that really harmed me. You painted a picture and created a narrative around an innocent man and did give me a chance to fight for my rights in the courtroom because you had already prejudged the situation based on the information you got from the state and you touted me as the alleged murderer. You put my face out there. You made everybody have an opinion about me. And then you say, okay, now we're going to give you a fair trial. How? Please tell me how. The media has already tainted this case. They have touted me out as the bad guy, the boogeyman, the alleged boogeyman to protect themselves. But yet you throw me out there and I'm innocent. So you help convict me. And that should not be the role of the journalist. The journalist should be independent, neutral, and printing facts. Should keep the case out there. Get the story from both sides and print the truth. That's all we want. I don't want you to sensationalize the story. I don't want you to favor one side or the other. I don't want you to give somebody a break. I want the truth because I depend on your information to make an informed decision. And if you're not doing that, if you're cheating, then you're cheating us. You're cheating everyone. You're cheating your work. You're cheating your profession. And you're cheating the truth. And that hurts us as a society. I lost 18 and a half years of my life because you touted me as this alleged murderer and killer without ever talking to me. Because if you would have talked to me, you would have knew that I was a loving father, son, brother, best friend, but that never got covered because the story was sensationalized. So I stayed in jail 2.5 years. Waiting on trial. I'm asking these people to take me to trial because in my mind, if I just get to trial and tell the truth, I go home because that's how the system is supposed to work. Unfortunately, that's not how it works, right? Because they don't take you to trial to see if you're innocent or guilty. They take you to trial to convict you. And then they put a jury up there to help them do that. And they paint this picture, right, of what you're supposed to have done. And then the media takes that and they go and put it back out in the public sphere. And now the public is making their mind up on this individual without the individual ever representing his side. So this is the problem that the media brings, is when they take the story and run with it without representing the truth. They represent a certain side of the truth. They represent the state and what they told them the truth was, without ever talking to that young man whose life is in the balance, without ever talking to his attorney and getting a comment from him. Thank God for social media now, where attorneys and people can go up there and use social media to get news out. And that's a platform that I think journalists should be also using. There are so many different platforms than the traditional platform today that can get the truth out. And I think journalists should take advantage of that because we're starving for the truth out here. We're starving for that type of information. It's so much false information going on around here that we don't know what to think anymore. So we want to rely on reliable information and news. And that's where you guys come in and separate yourself at. Really, because here's the deal. I spent 2.5 years waiting for trial. When I finally got to trial, right? The trial it was. They moved me down to Angleton, Texas to give me access at a fair trial because the media had been covering so much of the trial in that area that it happened and they didn't think I could get a fair trial, which was true. But what I didn't know is that when I got down there, it was the same thing. The prosecutor came down there and went straight to the media. Every day at 5 o'clock, the media had the prosecutor on talking about me being guilty in the town that I've been moved to try to get a fair trial. Now the media has heard me again because they're allowing this prosecutor to come on the 5 o'clock news and give his side of a story without ever reaching out to me or my attorneys. It just took his side and ran with it. So guess what happened at the end? I was wrongfully convicted. Who else played a role in it? The media. The media played a big role in this because the media was sensationalizing everything to get a story out, not caring about the actual truth. What really happened? You got to be investigators too. You got to pull up the facts. You got to talk to the people, and you got to look at this something with a critical eye because at the end of the day, what you write is going to impact someone's life. Your pen has power. I watched this pen change my life. One, it helped wrongfully convict me, and then it turned around and helped me got free. Because when they found out the truth about me, then they started writing the truth. It was an article that a journalist did on me that led to my exoneration. She told the truth. She went and got the story, the real story, and told the truth. And I came home. So journalists have a big role to play in our social justice, in our criminal justice, and just in our daily lives for information. We rely on you for information. Your role is so important. Your role is more important than athletes. Your role is more important than actors. Your role is more important than the prosecutor. Your role is more important than the defense attorney. Because you are in charge of getting the facts out to the public. There's no greater role, greater responsibility.
Was it easy for them to dismiss your story because of the color of your skin?
It was so easy for them to dismiss my story because of the color of my skin, because I had a racist prosecutor painting me as a dangerous man. I'm a young black African American man. It does not take much to point the finger and say he done something, especially if he's in a courtroom where everybody else is white. The judge, the jury, the prosecutor. The only person black is me and my family. And now I have to go up in here and rely on the system to work for me. And I'm looking like the black spot on the piece of white bread that they're going to remove eventually before they eat it. So my skin tone definitely played a role in me being wrongfully convicted, along with, and I'll go back to this, journalists could have painted a better picture of the truth, and they didn't. And they didn't because of biases. That were biases. You went to the state that was wrongfully convicting me, and you took their narrative and you helped them. And that's because I was black. Had I not been black, you probably would have came and asked me something. You probably would have went to my family. You probably would have been a little more critical of the fact that there was no even evidence to have this man in jail. But you didn't. You didn't dig deep enough to find the truth. You just took a narrative and ran with it. And I lost 18 and a half years of my life. You can't do that. You just can't do that. Your pen and paper is too important, too powerful to
Moving
just take a
forward,
narrative and run.
yes, moving forward, what is the lesson that we want this new generation of journalists to know about reporting on social justice? Looking at framing it with your case and what happened to you. 18 and a half years in prison with on death
Yes,
row, 2 stays of execution. What that means is that Texas was setting up to take your life twice.
yes. Setting up to take my life twice. And this is a story that journalists had a responsibility to keep out there so that we can continue to learn from them. You can't just let them do wrong and then we don't learn from it. But we will learn from it when journalists keep us involved, engaged, reporting these stories so that we can learn from them and not make the same mistakes. You journalists y'all have such a responsibility in the role of society. Such a responsibility. Because we tune in, we read everything you write because we want to know. And then we act based on the information you've given to us. Why do you think they have so many conspiracy theories going on around now? Right? They're acting on false information that they was fed because we believe in the journalist integrity that you're supposed to have. So you guys have a big role, man. I mean, and wear it with a badge of honor because what you say, what you write matters in this world today. Don't never forget that.
And what
So,
I really am excited about what you're doing is with many of your advocacy programs, including the Anthony Graves Smart Justice Bureau, where you are
yes.
training a new generation of second chance citizens and just citizens in general to help them to be able to tell their stories. And this is important for us to tell this story too. Let's talk about why that's important too.
Yes, I created a program, a Speakers Bureau program, because when I got out, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and so people had started inviting me to come speak, right? And I started speaking, and I felt I was being empowered as I was telling my story. I seen people how they were responding. People were getting upset, they were crying, they wanted to know how they could help, and I was like, wow. So if I just share my story, people want to get involved. People really do care. So I felt it was so important for people to learn how to share their story, not only for information, but it's empowering. It's giving your life back. It's saying what you did to me, I'm gonna take that and make good because now I'm gonna teach the public about, based on what you've done to me. And so I just think it's so important to learn how to tell your story because when you tell your story, we learn so much. We learn how to correct things. We learn how to do better. And that's what I've come to know. Sharing my story make people want to do better, make people want to change the criminal justice system. It's empowering, very empowering. So when you tell stories, just remember the power behind them. They're powerful.
And now you're not only doing that program, but you're also working with the Harris County Public Defender's Office as
Yes,
Chief
ma'am.
Community Liaison. And you're helping to advance changes in a system that has historically failed its citizens at all levels. Why is something like that important? Because there's nowhere else in this country where there's a position like that. It's only in Harris County.
Yes, yes, I'm still making history, you know. I keep your eyes on me. I'm still making history, and I feel like this role that I created over at the public defender's office it's really needed because a lot of family members, family loved ones, and stuff who wants to support their loved one going through the criminal justice system don't know how. They don't know how the system works themselves. They're afraid of the system because they've always seen this system destroying families, taking their loved ones away. So they don't know. And then they feel like they're being treated as a criminal because that's their loved one. So they're just lost when it comes to the system. So what I decided to do is create a program and bring in some other guys who've had a similar background and try to educate these family members on how to support their loved one, help navigate them through the criminal justice process. Any questions that they have that they want to ask their attorney and the attorney is not responding, they can come to me and I'll get to that attorney and get those answers back to them. So I'm trying to fill a gap so that I can create some trust between family members and lawyers so that we can get in the courtroom and get the best outcome. And back to the storytelling. And a part of the reason why I'm also encouraging people with their stories to tell them is because sometimes when you can go in the courtroom and you can speak up for your loved one and tell his life the way he can tell it. You can tell the story for him. You can tell the family story of how he ended up in that chair right there, where he may not be able to speak on his behalf. So it's important to learn how to tell your family story, how to tell the story that caused so much pain in your life and it caused this young man to be sitting in the courtroom. Because when you tell those stories and then they see that the loved ones are there to support them and talking about who they are, then you get to the best outcome. Instead of him getting 20 years in prison, now he's going to rehab for treatment because you got up in there and told the story of how he ended up on drugs and how he ended up having a gun in his hand because of the drugs and because of how it's the story that moves people. It's the story, and that's why people have to learn to tell their stories, and that's why you also have to tell the story the factual way.
And we're not necessarily, like you say, waiting on traditional media to do it. Because in your Speakers Bureau, we use social media, we use blogs, and you even took your group of first students to the Texas legislature in 2019, and one of your students' bill, which you helped to
Yes,
craft, ultimately became law, which was about intergenerational incarceration. And so that
yes,
is another victory. And that's a story that we need to tell. And
yes,
that's a
ma'am.
story that you don't hear much about. So that's something for this generation to pick up on telling that story as well, too.
Yes, yes, it's very important because see, we need to know that progress is being made. You know, Sabina knows about this young man that goes to this class, take this class, goes up there and get law passed, but the rest of the world might not know about it. But when you tell the story, the rest of the world get to hear it. You know, and it's a story that needs to be told because we fight every day for progress. We need to know when we are making it, and we only know when we are making it when you're sharing that information with us. You know. So that's why I say you have such an important role as a journalist in our society. Very important role. Very important
So,
role. I have much respect for you guys.
and so the lessons that you want us to take away from this conversation for this new generation of journalists, what lessons do you want them to take away? You know, we don't have to use traditional media. We're not using traditional media right now to have this
Right,
discussion,
right.
and so we're
Yes,
thinking out of the box with everything that we're doing. And so we have people online now this is the first time they've heard your story.
right,
That's
right.
the
Wow.
story. And so, what is the lesson that you want them to take away from our discussion today?
Well, the lesson I want them to take away is first of all to realize the important work that you do. Right? Realize how important it is to society, how important it is to your readers that we look to you to tell us the story, right? And I want you to realize that that's very important. You have a very important role in society. It is a very important role. But I also want you to realize that you have to keep stories relevant. You have to keep progress relevant. We don't know about progress if you're not telling us. You have to take on this role and responsibility to inform the public about what is going on in our world and what's going on around us. And it has to be factual. It has to be nonpartisan. It has to be information that we can receive and receive well and trust it, right? You have such an important role in our society today. Social justice is on the move right now. Only way we get to know about it is if you're reporting on it. You got to stay in tune, stay engaged with these movements because they're happening all the time now. We're in a new era. We're in a new era. Social media, people are putting information on social media every day. You got to use these platforms. You got to use all these platforms to get your story out, to get the information out, because nobody's just always picking up the paper no more. Nobody's just listening to the radio. They're listening to podcasts. They're doing Zoom. They're doing, that's a whole different world today, man. And so you just got to be on top of all that, right? Use all of those tools to your advantage and help us uh, uh, receive the information that we need to thrive out here today, because that's your role.
How do you walk away not being angry at everybody?
Because I know what my role is. My role is to inform and educate people so that we can make better decisions in our criminal justice system. That's why I went through this. I didn't go through this to be angry and bitter. I went through this to come back and be educated and to inform so that we can make a difference together. And looking back, I wouldn't have it any other way because I get to make a difference today. That gives my life so much purpose. And that's what you want at the end of the day, to wake up with a purpose. And that's what I do. That's what this has given me. And that's what reporting is going to do for you guys. It's going to give you a purpose.
And finally, your legacy. What is the Anthony Graves legacy?
The Anthony Graves legacy is I just want to help people help themselves, right? Take what I know from what I've had gone through and help other people help themselves. Make that transition back out here to society. I just want people to say Anthony Graves did everything he could with his experience to make the system a better criminal justice system. And if they remember me for that, then I will die the richest man in the world, because those are the true riches, making a difference.
Well, we finished right up on time. I don't know if we have any questions at this time,
You
but
do.
I would say, oh, we do have questions. Okay, can you please, I don't
Yes,
see
ma'am.
it.
I'll read it for you.
Okay.
No worries. This question is from Braxton Turner for Anthony. Many of times the judicial system has shown minorities, Black or brown people, that we mean very little to them by throwing us in jail, being racist, etc. Mr. Graves, how were you able to maintain your faith 18 and a half years ago or throughout your difficult time?
Wow, that's a good question, and it's been asked to me so many times, and I used to just off the bat would say, because I was naive, and naivete saved my life because I refused to believe that they could actually do this to me when I haven't done anything. But then I thought about that just a little bit more, and that's not really it. That was just a cover up. What saved my life, and remember this in any situation, what saved my life is I never forgot who I was. I always went back to remembering who I was. I was a father, I was a son, I was a brother, I had friends, I laughed, I cried, I was a human being. And I'm not going to let nobody change that. I'm not going to let no label define me. I know who I am. I'm Anthony Graves. And I never forgot that. And that saved my life, saved my sanity. So yes, never forget who you are, regardless of whatever circumstances you go through in life. It will save your life because you're a good person and you know you are.
Do we have any more? That was a very powerful answer. Every time I talk to you, I just get chills and become more committed to telling your stories and telling the stories of social justice. So I appreciate your fight. It's a good fight.
Yes, ma'am.
And
We
Yes.
have one more.
oh, we have another question?
Yes, ma'am. Last one. And this is from our own Dr. Ulassi. How do you tell your story as a victim of the system that's free of retribution or hate?
I can you pose that again? I mean, how do I tell my story?
As a victim of the system that's free of retribution or hate?
Oh, well, first of all, I don't tell my story as a victim. I'm not a victim. I'm victorious. I'm here talking with you. Never be a victim, because when you become a victim, you become very vulnerable, and people can put you in whatever box they want to put you in. I'm never a victim. I tell my story to educate, regardless of whatever else is taking place. It is important that I tell my story to educate and uplift people and show people that no matter what they go through, staying true to themselves, believing in themselves, knowing who they are, they can get through anything. Whether someone is hating you or not, it does not matter. If you stay true to yourself and continue to love yourself and be your own best friend, you can get through anything, because that's what I did. And that's why I'm able to tell my story with no hate, none of that. I am telling my story to educate you so that you can take this story and decide whether or not you want to fight for change. I hope you
Nelson,
do want.
Nelson Mandela came out that 27 years in prison, no hate.
No room for it. No room for it.
What an
This
incredible
is
story. It
beautiful.
just makes me tear up.
Yes, great job, Anthony. We want to thank you so much for coming and spending time with us during our virtual experience of Communication Week. And of course, our own Serbino Sandifer-Walker for your wonderful, wonderful interviewing skills. I'm sure the students have learned so much through this event. And again, Anthony, thank you so much for your time. We look forward
Thank
to
you.
you coming back to share with us at Texas Southern.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. It's an honor. Thank you so much.